The cold water bit at Aiden Marlowe's skin as he waded into the creek, the pre-dawn darkness still clinging to the world like a shroud. And he had barely taken 3 steps when he saw her, an orc woman, waist deep in the current, her green skin luminous in the fading moonlight. Her eyes locked on his with an expression he could not read. For a moment, neither of them moved. Aiden's hand instinctively went to the knife at his belt, though he did not draw it. The woman's shoulders were broad and muscular, her wet hair plastered against her skull in thick, dark ropes. 2 small tusks curved up from her lower jaw, catching the light. She wore only a simple leather vest that clung to her torso, soaked through. "I did not think anyone else knew of this place," she said finally, her voice low and careful, each word pronounced with deliberate precision. Aiden swallowed, forcing himself to relax his grip on the knife. "I have been coming here for 3 years, since I bought the farm upstream." "I have been coming here for 7, she replied, "since my mother brought me as a child." They stood in silence, the water rushing between them, creating a natural boundary neither seemed willing to cross. Aiden had seen orcs before, of course raiding parties in the distance, traders passing through with armed escorts, the occasional lone traveler hurrying through human settlements with their heads down. But he had never been alone with one, never spoken to one like this. "You come early," she observed. "I like the quiet," Aiden said, "before the day begins, before I have to think about the wheat that needs harvesting or the fence that needs mending." Something shifted in her expression, a softening around her eyes. "I understand that feeling. What is your name?" The question surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise her. She hesitated, as if debating whether to answer. "Korra." "Aiden." Another silence, less tense this time. The sky was beginning to lighten at the edges, purple giving way to deep blue. Birds were starting to wake in the trees along the bank. "I should go," Korra said, moving toward the opposite shore from where Aiden stood. "I did not mean to intrude." "You were here first," Aiden pointed out. "If anyone is intruding, it is me." She paused, looking back at him with an expression of genuine surprise. Then, without another word, she climbed out of the creek on the far side and disappeared into the trees, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for someone of her size and build. Aiden stood in the water for a long time after she left, his heart beating harder than the cold alone could explain. He returned the next morning at the same time, telling himself it was merely habit, that he was not hoping to see her again. But she was there in the same spot, waist deep in the current. This time she nodded to him in acknowledgement when he arrived. "The water is cold," she said. "Yes," Aiden agreed, wading in from his side of the creek. "But it wakes you up, makes you feel alive." "Yes." They did not speak much that morning or the morning after that. But Aiden kept coming, and so did Korra, and gradually their conversations grew longer, less guarded. He learned that she lived in a small settlement about 5 miles to the west, hidden in the forest where human authorities rarely ventured. She was a hunter, she told him, and a scout. "You ever get lonely?" Aiden asked one morning, about 2 weeks into their strange routine. The question had been burning in him for days. Korra considered this, her hands moving through the water in slow, meditative circles. "Yes, my people are not numerous and we keep ourselves separate. It is safer that way, safer from humans." "Yes," she met his eyes directly. "Your kind have given mine many reasons to fear." Aiden could not argue with that. He had heard the stories, seen the wanted posters in the village offering bounties for orc scalps. He had listened to men in the tavern boast about driving orc families from their homes, burning their settlements. "I am sorry," he said quietly. Korra's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across her face before she mastered it. "You are not responsible for what others have done. Maybe not, but I have never stopped them either." You are one man. One man can still make a difference." She smiled then, a small, sad curve of her lips that made Aiden's chest tighten. Perhaps, but at great cost to himself. Summer deepened as they continued their dawn meetings. Aiden learned that Korra loved the sound of rain on leaves, that she could identify any plant in the forest by touch alone, that she had lost her father to human soldiers when she was 12. She learned that Aiden had bought his farm with money saved from 7 years as a soldier himself, that he had left that life because he could no longer stomach the violence, that he had a younger sister in the capital, who wrote him letters he rarely answered because he did not know what to say to her. "Why did you become a soldier?" Korra asked one morning as they sat on opposite banks, their morning wash forgotten. "My father was one. It seemed like the natural path." Aiden picked up a smooth stone and turned it over in his palm. "I thought it would make me strong, honorable. I thought I would protect people. But you did not feel those things." "No, I felt like a tool, a weapon pointed at whoever my commanders decided was the enemy." He threw the stone into the creek, watching it disappear beneath the surface. "I killed people who were just trying to protect their homes. I followed orders without asking questions, and when I finally started asking, I did not like the answers." Korra was quiet for a long moment. "It takes courage to walk away from that, to choose a different path." "It took cowardice," Aiden corrected. "I ran away because I could not face what I had become." "No," Korra's voice was firm. "You chose to stop doing harm. That is not cowardice. That is strength." Aiden looked up and found her watching him with an intensity that made his breath catch. In the growing light of dawn, her green skin seemed to glow from within, and her eyes, dark and deep and full of understanding, held him transfixed. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. She nodded once, then rose to her feet. "I should hunt. My people will be hungry." But she did not leave immediately. She stood on the bank, water dripping from her clothes, looking at him as if memorizing his face. Then she turned and vanished into the forest as she always did. Aiden returned to his farm and threw himself into work with unusual fervor, trying to ignore the restless energy thrumming through his veins. He harvested wheat, repaired the chicken coop, weeded the vegetable garden until his hands were raw. But nothing could distract him from the memory of Korra's eyes, the way her voice had wrapped around his name, the surprising gentleness in her strong hands when she had once reached across the creek to show him a perfect river stone she had found. He was falling for her. The realization hit him one afternoon as he stood in his field, watching clouds build on the horizon. He was falling for an orc woman he met at dawn, in a world that would condemn them both for even speaking to each other. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. 3 days later, Korra did not come to the creek. Aiden waited until the sun was fully up, long past their usual time, worry gnawing at his gut. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 7 years of war. He should go home. He should tend his farm and forget about the orc woman who had somehow become the best part of his days. Instead, he found himself following the path she always took into the forest, tracking her footprints in the soft earth. The orc settlement was smaller than he had imagined, just a handful of structures built from logs and stone, nestled in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Smoke rose from several cooking fires. He could see children playing near one of the buildings, their laughter carrying across the space. He stayed hidden in the trees, knowing that walking into the settlement would likely get him killed. But he searched the clearing with desperate eyes, looking for any sign of Korra there. She emerged from one of the larger buildings, but something was wrong. She moved stiffly, favoring her left side, and even from this distance, Aiden could see the bandage wrapped around her ribs. Before he could stop himself, before he could think about what he was doing, Aiden stepped out of the trees and into the clearing. The reaction was immediate. Several orcs shouted warnings, and within seconds, he was surrounded by warriors with weapons drawn. But Aiden kept his hands raised, his eyes on Korra, who had frozen in place, her face pale beneath her green skin. "Aiden," she breathed. "What are you doing here? You did not come to the creek," he said simply. "I was worried." A large male orc with graying hair and scars across his chest stepped forward, his spear leveled at Aiden's throat. "You know this human, Korra?" Korra's eyes darted between Aiden and the warrior. "We have spoken, at the creek, spoken." The warrior's voice was heavy with disbelief and anger. "You have been meeting with a human in secret. Have you lost your mind? He means no harm, father. Father, of course." Aiden could see the resemblance now in the set of their shoulders, the shape of their eyes. No harm. Korra's father gestured at Aiden with his spear. "He is human. They have done nothing but bring harm to our people for generations. They murdered your brother, or have you forgotten?" "I have forgotten nothing," Korra said, her voice tight with pain, and Aiden could not tell if it came from her injury or from her father's words. "But Aiden is not responsible for what other humans have done. He was a soldier," her father spat. "I can see it in the way he stands, the way he holds himself even now with weapons at his throat. How many of our people did you kill, human?" Aiden met the older orc's eyes steadily. "I do not know. Too many. And I am sorry for it. I cannot change what I have done, but I can choose to be different now. Pretty words, but words mean nothing. Father, please." Korra stepped forward, wincing as the movement pulled at her injury. "Let him go. He came here because he was concerned for me, that is all." "That is not all, and we both know it." Her father's expression softened slightly as he looked at his daughter. "I have watched you these past weeks, seen the change in you. You smile more, you hum while you work, and now I know why." He turned back to Aiden, disgust clear on his face. "You would choose this human over your own people." "I am not choosing anyone over anyone," Korra protested. "I can care about someone without betraying my people." "No," her father said flatly, "you cannot. Not when that someone is human. Not when our survival depends on staying separate, staying hidden." He raised his voice so the gathered orcs could hear. "This human has seen our settlement. He knows where we live. He could bring an entire garrison down on us by tomorrow." "I would never do that," Aiden said. "I do not care what you would or would not do. You are a threat to my people simply by being here." Korra's father nodded to the warriors surrounding Aiden. "Take him to the holding pit. We will decide what to do with him after the council meets." "No." Korra moved to intercede, but her father caught her arm. "You are injured and in no condition to argue. Go to the healer's house and rest. That is an order." Aiden saw the conflict in Korra's eyes, the war between her duty to her people and whatever she felt for him. He tried to give her a reassuring smile, though he felt far from reassured himself. "It is all right," he said. "I understand." She watched helplessly as the warriors seized him, binding his hands and leading him toward a pit dug into the earth at the edge of the settlement. They lowered him down on a rope, and then he was alone in the darkness, the circle of sky above him already turning orange with the sunrise he had missed. Aiden sat with his back against the earthen wall and tried to think. He was not afraid of death. He had faced it too many times as a soldier to fear it now. But the thought of never seeing Korra again, never hearing her voice or watching the way she moved through the water at dawn, filled him with a grief so profound it stole his breath. How had she become so important to him in such a short time? How had these stolen moments at the creek become the foundation of something so real it hurt? Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and the circle of sky above turned from orange to blue. Aiden dozed fitfully, exhaustion and stress finally catching up with him. He woke to the sound of voices above. "This is madness, Korra. You cannot do this. Watch me." A rope tumbled down into the pit, and moments later Korra descended, moving carefully because of her injury. She had changed into darker clothes and carried a pack on her back. "What are you doing?" Aiden asked, struggling to his feet. "Getting you out of here." She pulled a knife from her belt and cut his bonds. "The council has decided. They are going to kill you at sunset as a warning to any other humans who might stumble across our settlement. Korra, you do not have to." "Yes, I do." She cupped his face in her hands, and Aiden's words died in his throat. "I cannot let them kill you. I will not. Your father, my father, is bound by fear and old wounds. I understand it. I even respect it, but I will not let it dictate my life." She dropped her hands and began fastening a harness around his waist. "When I pull you up, climb as fast as you can. We will have only a few minutes before someone notices." "What about you?" "I am coming with you." She said it simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You cannot leave your people." "I am not leaving them. I am making a choice." Korra looked at him with fierce determination. "You asked me once if I ever get lonely. The truth is, I have been lonely my entire life, until I met you. Until I started looking forward to dawn, not because it meant a new day, but because it meant I would see you." She grabbed the rope and began to climb, her movements jerky because of her injury. "Now stop arguing and help me get us out of here." Aiden had never been good at following orders, but he followed this one. He climbed the rope as Korra hauled from above, his muscles burning with the effort. When he reached the top, she was waiting, breathing hard, one hand pressed to her bandaged ribs. "Can you run?" she asked. "Yes." "Then run." They fled into the forest together as shouts erupted behind them. Aiden could hear pursuit, but Korra knew this land in ways he never could, and she led him through paths invisible to his eyes, across streams that would hide their scent, through thickets so dense he could barely squeeze through. They ran until Aiden's lungs burned and his legs threatened to give out. They ran until the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. They ran until Korra finally stopped in a clearing and doubled over, gasping for air, her hand pressed hard against her side. "Let me see," Aiden said, reaching for her. "I am fine. You are bleeding through your bandage. Let me see." Korra straightened slowly and allowed him to lift the edge of her vest. The bandage was indeed soaked through with blood, and when Aiden carefully peeled it back, he found a deep gash across her ribs, the stitches torn open from their flight. "What happened?" he asked, his fingers gentle as he examined the wound. "Bear. 3 days ago. It wandered too close to the settlement, and I was part of the group that drove it off. I was careless." She hissed as Aiden pressed a clean cloth from his own pack against the injury. "I killed it, but not before it got its claws in me. You need proper medical attention. What I need is to keep moving. My people will not stop looking for us, especially when they realize I helped you escape." "Then we go to my farm," Aiden decided. "It is only about 4 miles from here, and I have supplies. I was an army medic before I became a soldier. I know how to stitch wounds." Korra nodded weakly, and Aiden realized with alarm that she was paler than before, her skin taking on a grayish tinge. Blood loss. She had probably been losing blood slowly all day, made worse by her exertion in rescuing him. He got an arm around her waist and supported her weight as they walked. She did not protest, which told him how badly she was actually hurt. Korra was not the type to accept help unless she had no other choice. The journey to his farm took twice as long as it should have, with frequent stops so Korra could rest. By the time they reached the small farmhouse, the sun was setting and she was barely conscious, leaning heavily against him. Aiden got her inside and onto his bed, then set to work with the efficiency of long practice. He boiled water, laid out his medical supplies, and carefully cleaned the wound. Korra drifted in and out of awareness as he worked, occasionally murmuring something in the orc language he did not understand. The stitching took over an hour. Aiden worked by lamplight, his hands steady despite the fear churning in his gut. The wound was deep but clean, and thankfully the bear's claws had missed anything vital. With proper rest and care, she would heal. When he finally finished, he covered her with blankets and sat beside the bed, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. In sleep, she looked younger somehow, vulnerable in a way she never allowed herself to be when awake. "You are a fool," he told her sleeping form quietly. "You should have let them kill me. You should have chosen your people over someone you barely know." But even as he said it, warmth spread through his chest at the knowledge that she had chosen him. That whatever was growing between them was real enough, strong enough, that she was willing to risk everything for it. Aiden dozed in the chair, jerking awake at every sound, half expecting Korra's people to break down his door. But the night passed quietly, and when dawn came, Korra was still sleeping, her breathing deep and even. He went outside to do his morning chores, feeding the chickens and checking the garden, constantly glancing back at the house. The normalcy of these tasks felt surreal after the chaos of yesterday. Had it really been only a day since he had followed Korra into the forest? Since she had risked everything to save him, when he returned to the house, Korra was awake, struggling to sit up. "Do not move," Aiden said, hurrying to her side. "You will tear your stitches." "I need to," she stopped, looking around the room with confusion. "Where am I? My farm, my house?" He helped her settle back against the pillows. "You lost a lot of blood yesterday. You need to rest." "How long have I been asleep?" "About 12 hours. Korra's eyes widened. 12 hours. Aiden, my people have not found us yet. And they will not unless they knew about our meetings at the creek. Did anyone know? She shook her head slowly. No, I never told anyone. It was my secret. Then they have no reason to search near my farm. As far as they know, we could have fled in any direction. Korra relaxed slightly, though tension still lined her face. I cannot stay here, you know that. Eventually they will expand their search, and when they find me, then we will figure it out when that happens. Aiden sat on the edge of the bed. Right now, you need to focus on healing. Why are you doing this? Korra asked quietly. Why do you care what happens to me? Aiden looked at her, this fierce warrior who had saved his life, who had given up everything for him, and the truth rose to his lips before he could stop it. Because I am in love with you, he said. I think I have been since that first morning when you told me you understood the need for quiet. Since you looked at me like I was just a man, not a human or an enemy or a threat, just Aiden. No one has looked at me like that in a very long time. Korra's eyes glistened, and one tear tracked down her cheek. I am in love with you too, even though I know I should not be, even though it makes no sense. It makes perfect sense, Aiden said, reaching out to wipe away her tear with his thumb. We met as two lonely people who needed someone to see them, and we saw each other. Everything else is just noise. She caught his hand and pressed it to her cheek. The world will not let us be together. Then we will make our own world. How? Where could we possibly go that we would be accepted? I do not know yet, Aiden admitted. But we will figure it out. Together. Korra pulled him down into a kiss, gentle at first, then deeper, full of all the longing and fear and desperate hope they had both been carrying. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Aiden rested his forehead against hers. You need to rest, he murmured. I need you. I am not going anywhere. Over the following days, they settled into a careful routine. Aiden tended to Korra's wound, changing bandages and checking for infection. She healed quickly, faster than any human would have, but he still insisted she take it easy. During the day, he worked his farm while Korra rested, and in the evenings they talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Korra told him about growing up in the settlement, about the constant fear of human discovery, about watching her people diminish year by year as sickness and violence took their toll. She told him about her brother, the one her father had mentioned, who had been killed by human hunters when he was only 16. "They shot him for sport," she said one night, her voice flat with old grief. "They took his tusks as trophies and left his body for the scavengers. My father found him 3 days later." Aiden listened, his heart breaking for her and for the brother he would never meet. "I am so sorry. It was not your fault. But it was humans who did it. My people." "Your people," Korra repeated. "Just as the orcs who raid human settlements are my people. We are all responsible for the worst of what our kind does in a way, but we are not defined by it. We can be better." "I want to be better," Aiden said. "With you," she smiled, the expression transforming her face. "With me." A week after Korra's arrival, Aiden was working in the garden when he heard horses approaching. He straightened, shading his eyes against the afternoon sun, and his heart sank as he recognized the uniforms. Imperial soldiers, 3 of them, riding down the path toward his farm. He glanced at the house, where Korra was resting inside. She could not be found here. If the soldiers discovered an orc on his property, they would kill her immediately and probably arrest him for harboring a monster. Aiden forced himself to walk calmly toward the approaching riders, positioning himself between them and the house. "Gentlemen," he called out in greeting. "What brings you to my farm?" The lead soldier, a captain by his insignia, reined in his horse. "Are you Aiden Marlowe?" "I am." "We are searching the area for an orc that escaped from a settlement west of here. Large female, green skin, considered dangerous. Have you seen anything?" "No, sir," Aiden lied smoothly. "I have been working my fields. I have not seen anyone in days." The captain studied him with sharp eyes. "You were a soldier once, 7th Infantry if my records are correct." "That is right." "Then you know how dangerous orcs can be, how savage. If you see this one, do not try to engage. Send word to the garrison immediately." "Of course," Aiden said, though the words tasted like ash in his mouth. "Savage." As if Korra was some mindless beast rather than the intelligent, compassionate woman he had come to love. The captain nodded, apparently satisfied, and was about to turn his horse when one of the other soldiers spoke up. "Sir, permission to search the property. Standard protocol." Aiden's blood ran cold, but he kept his expression neutral. "Of course. Though I should warn you, the house is a mess. I was not expecting company." "We are not here for tea," the captain said dryly. He dismounted, as did the other soldiers, and they began walking toward the farmhouse. Aiden had no choice but to follow, his mind racing. Where could Korra hide? The house was small, just 3 rooms with minimal furniture. There was nowhere to conceal someone of her size, unless the cellar. He had a root cellar access through a trapdoor in the kitchen, used for storing vegetables through the winter. It was cramped and dark, but if Korra had heard the horses approaching, she might have had the same thought. The soldiers entered the house, spreading out to search. Aiden stood in the doorway, trying to look unconcerned while his heart hammered against his ribs. One soldier checked the bedroom, another the small sitting area. The captain stood in the kitchen, looking around with the practiced eye of someone trained to spot inconsistencies. His gaze fell on the trapdoor. "What is down there?" he asked. "Root cellar. I store potatoes, carrots, that sort of thing. Open it." Aiden's mouth went dry. "Sir, it is just open it. Now." Moving as slowly as he dared, Aiden crossed to the trapdoor and lifted it. Dim light spilled down into the cellar, illuminating racks of vegetables and preserved goods. No sign of Korra. The captain peered down into the space, then grunted. "Fine. Let us check the barn." Relief flooded through Aiden so intensely he nearly swayed. The soldiers trooped back outside and he followed, closing the door carefully behind him. They searched the barn, the chicken coop, even the tool shed, but found nothing. Finally, they remounted their horses. "If you see anything suspicious, you will report it," the captain said. It was not a question. "Absolutely," Aiden replied. The soldiers rode off, and Aiden stood watching until they disappeared down the road. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. He walked back to the house on shaking legs and opened the trapdoor again. "They are gone," he called softly. Silence. Aiden felt a spike of fear. What if she had not been in the cellar after all? What if she had fled into the fields and the soldiers had somehow found her? "Korra," he called again, louder this time. Movement in the shadows, and then she emerged, but not from the cellar. From behind a false panel in the bedroom closet that Aiden had forgotten even existed. He had built it years ago on a whim, thinking he might need to hide valuables someday. "I heard the horses," Korra said, her face pale. "I went to hide in the cellar first, but then I heard them coming inside. So I found this space instead. That was quick thinking. I am good at hiding. I've had a lot of practice." She moved stiffly, clearly having aggravated her injury by cramming herself into the tight space. "Aiden, we cannot keep doing this. Sooner or later they will find me. And when they do, they will kill me and probably you too for sheltering me. So we leave," Aiden said. "We pack what we need and go somewhere they will not look for us." "Where?" "You heard that, Captain. The soldiers are searching everywhere. Then we go where there are no soldiers. North into the frontier. I have heard there are settlements up there where people do not ask questions, where humans and orcs sometimes trade peacefully." Korra looked at him with something like wonder. "You would give up your farm, everything you have built here?" "This farm is just land and buildings," Aiden said firmly. "It is not a home without you. Nothing is." She crossed to him and kissed him deeply. And for a moment the fear and uncertainty fell away, leaving only the two of them and the love growing between them like something wild and impossible and absolutely real. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Aiden packed supplies, food, tools, medical equipment, enough to last them several weeks on the road. He sold his chickens to a neighbor, claiming he needed to travel to visit his sick sister. He loaded everything they would need onto a small cart pulled by his old mare. Korra was restless during the preparations, pacing when she thought Aiden was not watching, her hand frequently going to the knife at her belt. On the second evening, as they sat by the fire after dinner, she finally spoke what was on her mind. "I need to say goodbye," she said quietly. "To your people, to my father. He deserves that much at least. He deserves to know I am leaving by choice, not because I was killed or captured." Aiden understood the impulse, but fear clenched in his chest. "Korra, if you go back there, they will not let you leave again. I know the risk. But I have to try. I cannot just disappear without a word. He is my father. He loves me, even if he does not understand my choices." "Then I am coming with you." "No," Korra said sharply. "They will kill you on sight. Then we will have to make sure they do not see me." Aiden leaned forward, taking her hands. "I am not letting you go back there alone. We are in this together, remember?" She searched his face, then nodded slowly. "Together." They left at dusk the next day, moving through the forest with Korra leading the way. As they approached the settlement, she motioned for Aiden to stay hidden in the trees while she went ahead. "If I am not back in 1 hour, leave without me," she instructed. "I am not leaving without you." "Aiden, not negotiable." She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she just kissed him quickly and moved toward the settlement. Aiden watched her go, every instinct screaming at him to follow, to keep her in sight. But he forced himself to wait, counting the minutes as they crawled past. Korra entered the settlement openly, and immediately orcs began gathering around her. Aiden could not hear what was being said, but he could see the body language: surprise, anger, confusion. Korra's father appeared, and even from this distance Aiden could see the conflict on his face. The conversation grew heated. Korra gestured emphatically and her father shook his head. Other orcs joined the discussion, voices rising. And then, suddenly, warriors were grabbing Korra, binding her hands despite her struggles. Aiden was moving before he consciously decided to, bursting from the trees and sprinting toward the settlement. He knew it was insane, knew he was likely running to his death, but he could not watch them take her. He could not hide in the shadows while she faced this alone. "Stop!" he shouted, and every orc in the settlement turned to stare at him. He skidded to a halt in the center of the clearing, breathing hard, very aware of the weapons now pointed at him from all sides. But his eyes were on Korra, who looked at him with a mixture of terror and exasperation. "I told you to stay hidden," she said, "and I told you I was not leaving without you." Korra's father stepped forward, his face a mask of rage. You did this to her. You turned my daughter against her own people." "No," Aiden said firmly. "I did not turn her against anyone. She made her own choice. To run off with a human, to abandon her clan for some fool fantasy of love." The older orc spat on the ground at Aiden's feet. "You have poisoned her mind." "Father, please listen," Korra pleaded. "I am not abandoning anyone. I am choosing to live my own life. To find happiness where I can." "There is no happiness in this," her father said, his voice breaking. "Only death and heartbreak. His people will never accept you, and ours will never accept him. You will spend your lives running, hiding, always looking over your shoulders." "Maybe," Korra said. "But at least we will be together. At least we will have tried. I cannot let you do this." Her father turned to the warriors holding Korra. "Take her to the council house. Lock her in until she comes to her senses." "No," Korra struggled against her captors, but they held firm. "You cannot keep me prisoner. I can and I will, for your own good." He looked at Aiden with cold fury. "As for you, human, you will die for what you have done. Guards, take him to wait." A new voice cut through the chaos, old and creaking but carrying undeniable authority. An elderly female orc emerged from one of the buildings, leaning heavily on a carved staff. Her skin was more gray than green, and deep lines marked her face, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "Before we start executing people and imprisoning our own, perhaps we should actually listen to what they have to say." "Grandmother," Korra's father said, clearly struggling for patience. "This is not your concern." "Not my concern. When you are about to murder someone in our settlement and lock up my granddaughter, I think it is very much my concern." The old woman hobbled closer, studying Aiden with interest. "You, human, you claim to love my granddaughter with everything I am," Aiden said without hesitation. "And you, Korra, you love him." "Yes, grandmother." The old woman nodded slowly. "I see. And you two believe you can make a life together despite everything standing against you." "We are going to try," Korra said. "We are going north to the frontier. We have heard there are places there where humans and orcs sometimes live in peace." "Yes, I have heard the same." Korra's grandmother looked at her son. "Did you know I once knew a human, before you were born, before the wars got so bad? He was a trader who came through these lands regularly. We talked sometimes, shared meals. He was kind." "Mother, that is not the same thing." "No, it is not. But it taught me that not all humans are monsters, just as not all orcs are savages despite what they think of us." She turned back to Korra and Aiden. "I cannot give you my blessing. I cannot tell you this will be easy or even possible. But I can tell you that love, real love, is rare enough in this world that it should not be thrown away simply because it is inconvenient or forbidden. You cannot be serious, Korra's father said. You would let her go with him. I would let her make her own choice. As should you. The old woman's voice softened. She is your daughter, yes, but she is also her own person. You cannot protect her from everything, and you cannot force her to live the life you think is safest. All you can do is love her and hope she finds happiness. The clearing had gone silent. Every orc was watching this family drama unfold, and Aiden could see the conflict on many faces. They understood what Korra's grandmother was saying, even if they did not want to admit it. Finally, Korra's father spoke, his voice heavy with defeat. If I let you go, I will never see you again. They will cast me out for allowing it, for letting a human walk free after seeing our home. Then come with us, Korra said desperately. Father, please, we do not have to be enemies. I cannot. My place is here with my people, just as yours should be. My place is with Aiden. The words hung in the air between them, final and absolute. Korra's father closed his eyes for a long moment, and when he opened them again, they were wet with unshed tears. Go, he said roughly. Both of you, leave now before I change my mind, before the council can object. The warriors holding Korra released her, stepping back with uncertain expressions. Korra stumbled forward and Aiden caught her, pulling her against his side. Father, she whispered. Thank you. He did not respond, just turned and walked away, his shoulders bowed. Korra's grandmother approached them, moving with surprising speed despite her age. Take this, she said, pressing something into Korra's hand. It was a small carved stone, smooth and warm from her touch. It has protected our family for generations. May it protect you both now. Grandmother, Korra's voice broke. I will miss you. And I will miss you, child. But I am glad you found something worth leaving for. Now go quickly, before anyone else decides to interfere. Aiden did not need to be told twice. He took Korra's hand, and together they ran from the settlement, plunging into the forest as shouts erupted behind them. But the shouts were not pursuit, they were saying goodbye, in the only way Korra's people could. They ran until they reached Aiden's farm, where their packed supplies and cart waited. They loaded the last few items quickly, and then they were on the road, heading north as the moon rose overhead. For the first few hours, they traveled in tense silence, both expecting pursuit at any moment. But as the night deepened and no one came after them, they began to relax. I cannot believe we made it, Korra said softly, looking back at the land they were leaving behind. I cannot believe my grandmother spoke up for us. She is a wise woman, Aiden said. She knows that fear and hatred only breed more fear and hatred. Someone has to break the cycle. I just wish it did not have to cost me my father. Aiden reached over and squeezed her hand. Maybe it has not. Maybe someday, when enough time has passed, you can see him again. Maybe, Korra said, though she did not sound convinced. They traveled for 3 weeks, following traders' roads north into increasingly wild country. The farms and settlements grew sparse, eventually giving way to vast stretches of forest and grassland. They saw other travelers, occasionally humans mostly, but also a few dwarves and once a group of elves moving through the trees like shadows. And orcs. The farther north they went, the more orcs they encountered. At first, Korra tensed at every sighting, expecting trouble. But these orcs were different from the ones in her isolated settlement. They traveled openly, traded with humans at crossroads markets, lived in mixed communities where different species coexisted warily but peacefully. I did not know places like this existed, Korra said one evening as they camped beside a river. Across the water, they could see a small village where orc and human homes stood side by side. I thought my settlement was normal. I thought all orcs lived in hiding. Some still do, Aiden said. But up here, the wars never reached as far. People had to cooperate to survive the harsh winters and dangerous wildlife. I guess they figured out that they needed each other more than they needed to be enemies. It gives me hope, Korra said, moving closer to him. That maybe we really can make this work. That night, they made love for the first time, slowly and tenderly in their small tent, learning each other's bodies with gentle hands and whispered words. Afterward, they lay tangled together, and Aiden thought he had never been happier or more terrified in his life. They had left everything behind for this fragile, impossible thing between them. But looking at Korra's face in the moonlight filtering through the tent fabric, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, he knew he would make the same choice 1,000 times over. They reached the town of Millbrook 4 days later. It was larger than Aiden had expected, maybe 200 buildings clustered around a central square with a market. The population was mixed humans, orcs, a handful of other species, and no one gave them a second glance as they entered. This could work, Korra said, looking around with cautious optimism. We could stay here. Let us ask around first, see what we can learn about the place. They spent the afternoon talking to merchants and townspeople, getting a feel for Millbrook. What they learned was encouraging. The town had been founded 20 years earlier by refugees from the Southern Wars, both human and orc, who had decided they were tired of fighting. It operated under a simple rule. Whatever conflicts you had before coming here, you left them at the border. In Millbrook, everyone was simply a citizen, regardless of species. There are no guarantees, the innkeeper told them that evening over dinner. She was a middle-aged human woman with kind eyes and flour permanently dusted on her apron. We still have our tensions, our arguments. But we have made it work because everyone here decided to try, because we are all too stubborn to let the South's hatred poison what we have built. We would like to stay, Aiden said. If the town will have us, I am a farmer and Korra is a hunter, we can contribute. The innkeeper studied them both, and Aiden could see her making calculations. A human man and an orc woman traveling together. I assume there is more to your story than just professional partnership. We are together, Korra said, lifting her chin. If that is a problem, it is not, the innkeeper said, smiling. We have 3 other mixed couples in town. Though I will warn you, it is not always easy. People talk. They judge. But they will not run you out for it, and they certainly will not kill you for it, which I suspect is an improvement over wherever you came from. It is, Aiden said with feeling. They rented a room at the inn for a week while they looked for more permanent housing. The innkeeper, her name was Margaret Carlson. Though she insisted everyone call her, Maggie told them about a farmstead about a mile outside town. The previous owner had died the winter before, and his family in the South had no interest in claiming it. The land is good, Maggie said. House needs some work, but it is solid. If you can scrape together enough coin for the purchase price, the town council would probably be happy to sell it to you. We always need more farmers. Aiden and Korra went to look at the property the next day. It was larger than Aiden's farm in the South, with fields that had been well maintained until the owner's death, and a sturdy 2-room house that just needed some repairs. There was even a barn, bigger than the one Aiden had built himself. This could be home, Korra said softly, standing in the middle of the main field. This could really be home. Then let us make it ours. They negotiated with the town council, a group of 5 humans and 3 orcs who governed Millbrook collectively, and scraped together enough money by selling most of Aiden's equipment and tools. By the end of their second week in Millbrook, they owned the farm. The work began immediately. They spent their days repairing the house, clearing overgrown fields and meeting their neighbors. Most people were welcoming, though Aiden noticed some looks curious, judgmental, or simply uncomfortable. But no one gave them any real trouble, and slowly they began to settle in. Korra threw herself into hunting, bringing back deer and rabbits and wild turkeys that Aiden learned to preserve. He planted wheat and vegetables, working the land with the same steady rhythm he had known at his old farm. In the evenings, they worked together on the house, adding shelves and mending the roof and painting the walls a warm yellow that made the whole place feel bright. 3 months after arriving in Millbrook, as autumn painted the forests in shades of red and gold, Aiden came home from the fields to find Korra standing by the creek that ran through their property. She was staring at the water with an expression he could not read. "Are you all right?" he asked, joining her. "I was just thinking about the creek where we met, how different everything is now." She turned to him and there were tears on her face. "I am so happy, Aiden. I did not think I could be this happy, but I miss them sometimes. My father, my grandmother, the people I grew up with, I know." He pulled her close and she buried her face against his chest. "It is all right to miss them. You can love the life we have built and still grieve what you lost. I just wish they could see this place, see that we made it work, that we are building something good here. Maybe someday they will." Korra pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Do you really think so? I do not know, but I believe in possibilities. I believe that the world is changing slowly. And maybe one day it will change enough that your father could visit without fear, that we could introduce our children to their grandfather." "Children," Korra repeated, her eyes widening. "You want children with me. I want everything with you," Aiden said simply. "If you want it too." She kissed him then, deep and fierce, and when they broke apart she was smiling through her tears. "I want it too, all of it." That winter was hard, as they had been warned. Snow fell for weeks at a time and temperatures dropped so low that even breathing hurt. But their house was warm, their supplies were ample, and they had each other. They spent the long dark evenings talking, making love, planning the spring planting, and slowly building the life they had dreamed of. When spring finally arrived, they hosted their first dinner party. Maggie came, along with 2 of their neighbors, a human carpenter and his orc wife, who had been married for 15 years. The evening was full of laughter and good food and stories that made Aiden realize how much he had missed simple companionship. "You two seem happy," the carpenter's wife, her name was Rena, observed as she helped Korra clean up after the meal. "It is good to see. When you first arrived, you both looked like hunted animals. Now you just look like people." "We feel like people again," Korra said, "like we can finally breathe." "That is what Millbrook does. It lets you be yourself without apology." Rena paused, then added quietly, "But do not get complacent. The world has not changed as much as we might like. There are still people who would hurt you for what you are to each other if they got the chance." "We know," Korra said. "We will be careful." And they were. They kept their guard up when traveling to other towns for supplies or trade. They did not advertise their relationship to strangers. But in Millbrook, in their home, they allowed themselves to simply exist as a couple in love. Summer came, and with it, the first real test of their new life. Aiden was in town buying seed when he heard raised voices coming from the square. He hurried over to find a group of soldiers, imperial soldiers, in the same uniforms he had once worn, confronting the town council. "We have reports of orc criminals hiding in this area," the captain was saying. He was not the same man who had come to Aiden's farm in the south, but he had the same hard eyes, the same contempt in his voice when he said orc. "We demand permission to search your town." "This is a sovereign community," one of the orc council members replied, his voice level but firm. Imperial authority does not extend here. You have no right to search our homes. We have every right to pursue fugitives. You have names, descriptions. Any actual evidence that these so-called fugitives are here?" The captain's jaw tightened. "We do not need to justify ourselves to you. Step aside, or we will go through you." The square had gone silent. Townspeople had gathered to watch the confrontation, and Aiden could feel the tension like a physical weight. This was the moment where everything could go wrong, where the fragile piece of Millbrook could shatter. Then Maggie stepped forward. "Captain, I run the inn. If there were strangers in town, especially orc strangers, I would know about it. And I can tell you with certainty that there are no fugitives here. Just people trying to live their lives in peace. And I should take your word for that. You should take the word of an honest businesswoman who has no reason to lie to you. Or you can try to search our town by force and discover that these people, human and orc alike, will fight you every step of the way. Your choice." The captain looked around at the gathered crowd, clearly calculating his odds. What he saw must not have encouraged him, because after a long, tense moment he turned back to his men. "Mount up. We are leaving." He pointed at the council members. "But this is not over. If we find proof that you are harboring fugitives, we will return with a full battalion." They rode out and the square erupted in relieved conversation. But Aiden stood frozen, his heart hammering. Fugitives. The captain had been looking for orc fugitives. Had he been looking for Korra? He hurried home as fast as he could without drawing attention. He found Korra in the garden, and the moment she saw his face, she knew something was wrong. "What happened?" He told her about the soldiers, the captain's threats, and watched her face pale. "They are still looking for me," she said. "They have not given up. We do not know that for certain. The captain did not mention you specifically." "Aiden, how many orc women do you think escaped from settlements in the south in the last few months? It has to be me they are looking for." She was probably right, but Aiden did not want to admit it. "Even if it is, they did not find you. The town protected you. This time. But he said he would come back, and if they do, if they bring enough soldiers, Millbrook will not be able to stop them." Korra sank down onto the garden wall, her head in her hands. "We should leave. We should not put this town at risk." "No," Aiden said firmly. "We have built a life here. We have friends, a home, a future. We are not running again. What choice do we have? We stand and fight if we have to. We trust that the people of Millbrook will not give us up." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "But mostly, we keep living. We do not let fear dictate our lives. That is what they want, for us to be so terrified that we hide or run or give up on being happy. I will not give them that power over us." Korra looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, we stay, we live our lives, and if they come back, we face it together." "Together," Aiden agreed. The soldiers did not return that summer or that fall. Life continued. Aiden and Korra harvested their crops, sold their surplus at market, and slowly became known in Millbrook, not as the human orc couple or the fugitives or the outsiders, but simply as Aiden and Korra, the farmers by the creek. Winter came again, their second in Millbrook. One evening as snow fell outside and a fire crackled in the hearth, Korra turned to Aiden with a nervous expression. "I have something to tell you," she said. Aiden set down the book he had been reading, his full attention on her. "What is it?" "I am pregnant." For a moment, Aiden could not process the words. Then joy flooded through him, so intense it stole his breath. "Pregnant? You are certain?" "Very certain. Rena confirmed it yesterday. She has delivered enough babies to know the signs." Korra's hand went to her still flat stomach. "I am about 2 months along, she thinks." Aiden pulled her into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to be parents. Are you happy?" Korra asked, pulling back to search his face. "Happy." Korra, I am terrified and amazed and more happy than I have ever been in my entire life. He kissed her softly. We are going to have a family. A family, she repeated, and her smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. The pregnancy was not easy. Korra suffered from terrible sickness for the first 4 months, barely able to keep food down. Rena and Maggie helped, bringing remedies and sitting with her when Aiden had to work the farm. The whole town seemed invested in this pregnancy, this proof that different species could not only coexist but build futures together. As Korra's belly swelled, so did Aiden's worry. What kind of world was he bringing a child into? A world where their very existence was illegal in most places, where soldiers hunted their mother, where they would always be caught between two cultures, never fully accepted by either. But then he would feel the baby kick beneath his palm, or see Korra talking to their unborn child, or watch the way the townspeople already treated this baby as one of their own, and his fears would quiet. They would figure it out. They would give this child all the love and protection they had, and trust that it would be enough. Korra went into labor on a spring morning, just as the trees were beginning to bud. Aiden ran to fetch Rena while Maggie stayed with Korra, and then there was nothing to do but wait and hope and pace outside while the women worked. The labor lasted 14 hours. Aiden counted every minute, sick with worry, every time he heard Korra cry out. But finally, he heard a different sound, a baby's strong, angry wail. Rena appeared in the doorway, her face tired but smiling. You have a daughter. Both mother and baby are healthy. Come meet your child. Aiden stumbled into the room on shaking legs. Korra lay in their bed, exhausted and sweaty and more beautiful than he had ever seen her. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. Aiden, she said softly, come meet her. He approached slowly, almost afraid to look. What would their daughter be, more human or more orc? Would she face a lifetime of prejudice because she was neither one thing nor the other? Korra pulled back the blanket, and Aiden looked down at his daughter for the first time. She had Korra's green skin but lighter, like new spring leaves. Her ears were pointed but small. And when she opened her mouth to cry, he could see tiny bumps on her gums where tusks would eventually grow. She was perfect. What should we name her? Korra asked. Aiden thought of his mother, who had died when he was young but who he still remembered as kind and gentle. Nora, he said. After my mother, if that is all right with you. Nora, Korra repeated, testing the name. Nora Marlowe, I love it. The baby Nora wrapped her tiny hand around Aiden's finger, and he felt something inside him break open, some final wall he had been keeping up. He had been a soldier, a farmer, a fugitive. But this was the role he had been waiting for his whole life without knowing it. Father, husband, family man. I promise, he whispered to his daughter, that I will spend every day of my life making the world better for you. That I will fight so you never have to hide what you are or who you love. That you will grow up knowing you are cherished exactly as you are. Nora gurgled, and somehow Aiden felt like she understood. The town of Millbrook fell in love with Nora immediately. People brought gifts, hand-carved toys, tiny clothes, blankets stitched with protective runes. The carpenter built a crib. Maggie organized a welcoming ceremony that drew nearly the whole town. For one evening, humans and orcs gathered together to celebrate the birth of a child who represented their shared future. Korra's grandmother would have loved this, Aiden thought as he watched the celebration. He wished she could be here to see her great-granddaughter, to see that the choice Korra made had led to this joy and community and hope. 2 weeks after Nora's birth, that wish came true in a way Aiden never expected. He was working in the field when he saw figures approaching down the road. He tensed, his hand going to the knife at his belt until he recognized the lead figure. Tall, graying, with scars across his chest and a face Aiden had never forgotten. Korra's father. Aiden's mind raced. Should he run? Call for help? But before he could decide, Korra emerged from the house with Nora in her arms. She froze when she saw her father, and for a long moment neither of them moved. Then Korra's father spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "I heard you had a child, a daughter." "Yes," Korra said carefully. "Her name is Nora." "May I see her?" Korra looked at Aiden and he nodded. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Slowly, she walked toward her father, stopping a few feet away. She pulled back the blanket so he could see Nora's face. The old orc stared at his granddaughter for a long time. Then, to Aiden's shock, tears began streaming down his face. "She is beautiful," he whispered. "She looks like you did as a baby." "Father." Korra's voice broke. "What are you doing here? Your grandmother died 3 months ago." Korra gasped, and her father continued quickly. "She went peacefully in her sleep. But before she passed, she made me promise something. She made me promise that I would find you, that I would see for myself if you were happy. That I would not let pride and fear keep me from knowing my daughter or my grandchildren. She made you promise that." She was very insistent. "You know how she got." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "So I came. I brought others too, those who wanted to see you, who missed you. We have been traveling for 2 weeks." Aiden looked past him and saw a small group of orcs standing on the road, maybe a dozen total. He recognized a few faces from the settlement. They looked nervous but hopeful, and completely unlike the hostile warriors who had surrounded him months ago. "You came all this way," Korra said, tears flowing freely now. "You came to see me." "I came to apologize." Her father's voice was thick. "I was wrong. I let fear and old wounds control me. I tried to keep you from living your own life because I was afraid of losing you. And in doing so, I lost you anyway. I do not expect your forgiveness, but I had to try. I had to see if maybe, possibly, there was a place in your life for a stubborn old fool who loves you more than he knew how to show." Korra closed the distance between them and wrapped one arm around her father while holding Nora with the other. "There is always a place for you in my life. Always." They clung to each other, and Aiden had to look away, his own eyes stinging. When he looked back, Korra was bringing her father over to meet him properly. "Father, this is Aiden, my husband." Husband. They had not had an official ceremony, but somehow the word felt right. They were married in every way that mattered. Korra's father extended his hand, and Aiden took it. The older orc's grip was strong, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of real respect. "Thank you for making my daughter happy. Thank you for giving her a home and a family and a life where she can be herself." He paused, then added, "I was wrong about you, about humans. Not all of them, maybe, but you, at least, have proven yourself worth her love." "She has proven herself worth mine 1,000 times over," Aiden replied. They spent the rest of the day showing Korra's family around Millbrook, introducing them to the townspeople, letting them see the life Korra and Aiden had built. Some of the orcs decided to stay a few days, marveling at a place where humans and orcs lived as neighbors. Others opted to return south, but with a new understanding that maybe, just maybe, another way was possible. Korra's father stayed for a week, helping Aiden with the farm work and spending hours with his granddaughter. On his last evening, as they sat around the dinner table, he spoke about the settlement. "Things are changing," he said. "Slowly, but they are changing. Your grandmother's death hit us hard, but it also made us think about what she stood for, about her final message." He looked at Korra. "We are trying to be less isolated, trying to reach out to nearby human communities, establish trade, build relationships. It is frightening for many of us. But we have seen what happens when we hide and fight. Maybe it is time to try something different." "That is wonderful," Korra said. "Grandmother would be proud." "I hope so." He stood to leave and Korra walked him to the door. "Will you visit? Bring Nora to see where you grew up." "Yes," Korra promised. "When she is old enough to travel, I want her to know both sides of her family, both parts of herself." They embraced one more time, and then her father was gone, leading the other orcs back toward the settlement. But this time, it did not feel like a permanent goodbye. It felt like the beginning of something new. Life settled into a rhythm after that. Nora grew, passing her first birthday, then her second. She was a bright, curious child who loved helping in the garden and chasing the chickens. She spoke both common and the orc language, switching between them as easily as breathing. And she was loved by her parents, by the town, by her grandfather who visited twice a year and brought gifts from the settlement. Aiden and Korra made good on their promise to visit the settlement, and while some orcs remained wary of Aiden, most accepted him. He was Korra's choice, and he had given them Nora, who delighted everyone she met with her infectious laugh and fearless spirit. The world beyond Millbrook remained complicated. There were still places where humans and orcs fought, still towns where an orc would be killed on sight. But slowly, incrementally, things were changing. More mixed communities appeared. More people began questioning the old hatreds, and every child like Nora who grew up straddling two worlds helped bridge the gap between them. One evening, 5 years after they had first arrived in Millbrook, Aiden and Korra stood by the creek on their property, the creek that had reminded Korra of where they first met. Nora was asleep in the house, watched over by a teenage neighbor. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Do you ever regret it?" Aiden asked. "Leaving your settlement, everything you gave up?" Korra leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. "Not for a single moment." "This life, you, Nora, our home, our friends, this is more than I ever dreamed I could have. I thought I would spend my life hiding, always afraid. Instead, I found love and hope and a future worth fighting for." "I was so lost before I met you," Aiden said. "Going through the motions of living without really feeling alive. You changed everything." "We changed everything," Korra corrected. "Together." "Together," Aiden agreed, pulling her close. They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon and stars began appearing overhead. Somewhere in the house behind them, their daughter slept peacefully, safe and loved. Around them, a town full of people who had chosen hope over fear continued their evening routines. And across the land, slowly but surely, others were making the same choice to build rather than destroy, to love rather than hate, to see past old divisions to the people underneath. It was not a perfect world. There was still prejudice, still violence, still those who clung to the old ways. But Aiden and Korra had proven that another path existed, that a human and an orc could build a life together, raise a family, and find happiness in a world that told them it was impossible. And as they walked back to their home hand in hand, Aiden thought about that morning years ago when he had gone to wash up at the creek before dawn and found an orc woman already there, waist deep in the current. He had been looking for solitude that morning. Instead, he had found everything he never knew he needed. He had found his future. He had found his family. He had found home. Years continued to pass in Millbrook, each season bringing new growth and new challenges. Nora started school with the other children in town, learning to read and write and do sums. She also learned to track and hunt from her mother, and to farm and build from her father. She was growing into a remarkable young girl, confident in both her human and orc heritage, comfortable in her own skin in a way neither of her parents had been at her age. When Nora was 7, Korra became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, and she delivered a healthy son they named Marcus, after Aiden's father. Marcus had darker green skin than his sister and more prominent tusks, but the same bright eyes and curious nature. The farm prospered. Aiden and Korra expanded their fields, bought more livestock, and became known throughout the region for the quality of their produce. They hired help during harvest season, both human and orc workers who appreciated fair wages and respectful treatment. Their farm became a model for what cooperation between species could accomplish. But more importantly, their family became a symbol. When travelers passed through Millbrook and saw Aiden and Korra walking through town with their children, saw the way the whole community embraced this mixed family, it changed something in their thinking. Some left inspired to create similar communities elsewhere. Others simply left with the seeds of doubt about the prejudices they had been taught. Korra's father visited regularly, and he was not alone. More orcs from the settlement made the journey, curious about this place where their kind could live openly. Some decided to stay, building homes on the outskirts of Millbrook and integrating into the community. The settlement itself evolved, becoming less isolated, establishing formal trade agreements with human towns, slowly letting go of the fear that had defined them for generations. On Nora's 10th birthday, something remarkable happened. The town council approached Aiden and Korra with a proposal. They wanted to commission a monument for the town square, a statue depicting a human and an orc standing together, hands clasped, looking toward the horizon. Beneath it would be inscribed the founding principle of Millbrook: different paths, shared future. "We want you and Korra to be the models," one of the council members explained. "You two represent everything this town stands for. You took a chance on love when the whole world said it was impossible. You built a life that proves our differences make us stronger, not weaker." Aiden looked at Korra, who had tears in her eyes. "We would be honored," she said. The statue was unveiled 6 months later in a ceremony that drew people from all over the region. Aiden stood with Korra and their children, watching as the covering was pulled away to reveal the bronze figures, slightly idealized but unmistakably them. Korra's father stood nearby, beaming with pride. Maggie was crying openly. The whole town had turned out, along with visitors from a dozen other communities. As speeches were made about unity and hope and the future, Aiden found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them here. How a chance encounter at a creek had led to this moment, to this life, to this family. How choosing love over fear had rippled outward in ways he never could have anticipated. That night, after the celebrations ended and the children were asleep, Aiden and Korra walked to the creek on their property. It had become their tradition over the years. Whenever something significant happened, they came here to mark the moment, to remember where they had started. "Do you think we have made a difference?" Korra asked, trailing her fingers through the water. "Really made a difference? Look at our children," Aiden said. "Look at this town. Look at how many people have found hope in our story. Yes, love, we have made a difference. Maybe not as much as we would like. The world is still full of hatred and division, but we have proven that another way is possible. That is not nothing. It is everything," Korra said softly. She turned to him, the moonlight catching in her dark eyes. "When I met you that morning, I never imagined this. I thought we might share a few conversations, perhaps a brief friendship before circumstances pulled us apart. Instead, you gave me a lifetime. You gave me a family and a home and a community. You gave me hope." "We gave each other all of that," Aiden corrected, pulling her close. "Neither of us could have done this alone. We needed each other. We still need each other." They kissed there by the creek, two people who had found each other against impossible odds and built something beautiful from their love. Above them, stars wheeled across the sky. Behind them, their home waited, warm and safe, filled with the sounds of their children breathing. Around them, a town slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they had created something worth protecting. And in the distance, across forests and fields and mountains, other people were beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could create something similar. That the old hatreds did not have to define them. That humans and orcs and all the other species who shared this world could find ways to live together, to build together, to love together. It would not happen overnight. There would be setbacks and struggles and moments of despair. But every small victory mattered. Every family like Aiden and Korra's mattered. Every child like Nora and Marcus who grew up knowing that love transcended species mattered. The world was changing, one dawn at a time, one creek at a time, one brave choice at a time. And Aiden and Korra, standing together in the moonlight with water rushing past their feet, knew that their story, their love, was part of that change. Not the whole story, but a chapter worth telling, a moment worth preserving, a choice worth celebrating. They had gone to the creek seeking solitude and found each other instead. They had faced a world determined to keep them apart and built a life together anyway. They had been told their love was impossible and proven everyone wrong. And as they walked back to their home hand in hand, just as they had done countless times before and would do countless times again, they carried with them the knowledge that love, real love, could overcome anything. That hope, real hope, could change the world. That together, anything was possible. The years ahead would bring more challenges and more joys. Their children would grow and have children of their own. The world would continue to change, slowly evolving toward something better. And through it all, Aiden and Korra would stand together, two souls who had found each other at dawn by a creek and decided that their love was worth fighting for. It was more than enough. It was everything. It was a happily ever after earned through courage and sacrifice, and the simple, revolutionary act of choosing love over fear. And it all began with a man going to wash up at the creek before dawn and finding an orc woman already there, waist deep in the water, about to change his life forever.